Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady, and today I will be doing a tournament/stream review from the ITC's Socal Open that took place this weekend in California. There were over 150 participants, and it turned out to be a great event. This is the first event that the ITC tried out their new 8th edition missions, and they seem to have been a great success. The missions are meant to be balanced with competitive play in mind. They are tailored missions to give an inherent advantage to the player going second, giving them better opportunities to deny and score points. This is meant to help counter the Alpha Strike meta that we have been seeing since the beginning of 8th edition. Sure, the person going first gets to strike first, but the person going second has a better chance of scoring better. This does not mean that the person going first can't score more than the person going second. It's just more likely that the person going second will score more, just like it's more likely that the person going first will kill more. It's hard to explain, but once you play and learn the missions, you'll understand it better. So with these missions, and also the type of terrain that's now being used, which is big line of sight blocking terrain, Alpha Strike lists and going first isn't the end-all win-all that it used to be. Now that you guys know a little bit about the mission set that was being used, let's get into the information you want to know, like which armies did the best. So let's get into it. Right now, as I talk, I will be showing parts of the stream that showcased some of the matches in the Socal Open, which had over 150 participants. If you want to watch the full matches, then head over to Frontline Gaming stream, which is at twitch.com/frontlinegaming_TV, and check their VODs to watch one game from each of the 6 rounds, including the finals. So from watching the stream and listening to the people from Frontline Gaming talk about the tournament, it seems as though Chaos has taken over the meta, but in a new way. With the arrival of Mortarion, it seems as though Malefic Lord spam has evolved into Demon Primarch spam. The list that would have placed second in the event had the player not been disqualified, which I will discuss later, had Mortarion, Magnus, a Renegade Knight, some Paladins and Nurgle, and some Brimstones to fill it out. The person who came in first was Brandon Grant, so congrats to him on winning the Socal Open, and he did it with almost a pure Imperial Guard list. People were thinking Guard were going to take over everything, but they didn't. In fact, there was only one pure Guard list in the top 16, and that was Brandon Grant's list, and he won the whole event. Also, keep in mind, he's been a Guard player for years now, so he knows them inside and out. So from the looks of it, Chaos was the most represented, with Ynnari being second and then Guard. If I heard correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was only those 3 factions that made it into the top 16. Every other army was left in the dust, including Ultramarines with Guilliman, and was even told on stream that most of the Marine players in the event opted to not use Guilliman and instead brought more Forge World stuff. And speaking of Forge World stuff, in fact there was a lot of Forge World at the event, but from what I've seen, nothing Forge World made it into the top 5 armies. So yes, Forge World stuff is very strong, but it's not the end-all beat-all type units that some people think that they are. Forge World seems as though it is no longer a problem. Malefic Lords are falling out of favor, and people who rely on expensive Forge World stuff end up losing their games more often than not. The dynamic duo of Morty and Magnus seems to be doing amazing though. So that brings us to the topic of, are Demon Primarchs too strong? And the answer is, kind of. They obviously aren't, because if you have the right list and know what you're doing, they're fairly easy to kill. Brandon Grant built his army accordingly and was able to table the Chaos player in turn 5. So it is possible to beat Primarchs, you just have to have a good list and again, know what you're doing. If you take a look at his list, you can see a ton of conscripts to be a meat shield, and they held up the Primarchs so that on the following turns, the rest of his army could unload on the Primarchs and kill them. If you watch my video on how to build a competitive army list, I explain how to go about building one of these armies that can combat the Primarch lists. If you want to see a gunline versus elite army in action, watch the final match from the stream, and you can see how easily Grant is able to defeat the Demon player. They even mention that these 2 players played the week before for practice, and Grant tabled the Chaos player on turn 3 with the exact same list. So it goes to show the Primarchs can die, you just need to build a list and know what you were doing. With that said, if people don't have screening units, if people don't build their list properly, then they will be demolished in 1 or 2 turns by these Primarchs. They seem, and I'm not gonna lie, they are extremely strong if you give them the right opportunities to do what they're meant to do. If you give them big targets that have multiple wounds that they can just one-shot, they will win the game. If you give them huge blobs of conscripts or boys that they have to chew through in order to get to your anti-tank, then your anti-tank will have multiple rounds of shooting on them and will kill them. In all of the games that I watch, and you can watch up to 6 games on their stream, in every game where the opponent didn't have a screen of some sort of cheap infantry, they died to the Primarchs very easily. If they did have a screen, like in the finals, then they tabled the Primarchs very easily. The game literally comes down to that. Do you have a screen that will protect your good stuff? And if so, did you deploy properly to stop them from jumping behind your guys and everything? Because remember, the Primarchs can fly, so they can jump right over your line. But if you have enough guys in such a big blob and you don't give them any area to land, then they can't land and they have to go after the conscripts, which is not worth it for them. So with that said, they are kind of strong. They're really strong against people that don't build their list properly, but they're not that strong against people that do build proper lists. Moving on, let's now talk about the big controversy that overshadowed the ending of this event. The Chaos player who was in the running for second place was disqualified live on stream because his army list was 14 points over the limit. It seems as though it was an honest mistake and was actually an error on Battlescribe, and the player had no intent of actually cheating. But they still had to disqualify him because of a zero tolerance policy for cheating. Although it sucks for that player, I agree with the decision, because if you let him get away with the 14 extra points because of an accident, then in the next tournament you'll have at least 10 people that bring lists that are 10 to 20 points over and will also claim it was an accident even if it wasn't. So to prevent this, you have to stop the problem at its root, and even if it was legitimately an accident, you still have to punish it. Some people in Twitch chat were saying, it's only 14 points, you should be allowed to be over the limit by a tiny bit. Well, what's your definition of a tiny bit? You might think that means under 20 points, but Joe Blow, who's a win-it-all-cost player, might interpret that as anything under 400 points, meaning he'll bring a 2400 point list and claim, it's only over by a little bit and you guys said a little bit was allowed, so my list is allowed. So then people were saying, well, let's make it official, 20 points over is the limit. Well, now you just made your tournament 220 point list tournament. Why didn't you just write on the tournament that the tournament is 220 point list if you want 220 points? But then you get back into the argument now, well, now do they get 20 points more than that, so is it really 240? But then if they do that, do they get 20 more points on top of that, so is it 260? So again, you just gotta cut it off, and that's what they do. When they say 2,000 is the point limit, no ifs, ands, or buts, that is that. You have to follow the points limit, otherwise you're cheating. It's like being in football. When you're watching a professional football game, if they have too many players on the field, they'll get in trouble for it, because you're not allowed to do that. Sure, it might have been an accident. Player 1 and player 2 might have thought that the coach told them both to go out, but only one of them was supposed to be out. You still have to penalize them for it because it's still cheating. So again, I feel for the player who was disqualified, but personally, I believe it was the right choice by the TOs. So that about covers it for the tournament report for the Socal Open. From watching the stream, it looked like an amazing event that I wish I could have afforded to attend. Maybe next year. And thanks to the people at Frontline Gaming for putting on the tournament and for putting on the stream, so people like myself who couldn't afford to make it could actually watch some good competitive games of 40k being played. Also, keep in mind, I did ask in chat, and I guess I'll show this part of the video, I asked a question to Brandon Grant how he would change his list based off of the changes that they made to conscripts, which was not being used in this tournament because they announced it the day of the tournament, so it's not really fair to the people that signed up with Guard to have them use the FAQ for that day. So I asked him, in future events where they will be using the FAQ, how would you change your list? And he responded,
to answer Chronic, if you can look at my list online, I'm not sure if you can, I'm not going to really change my list too much going forward. The changes don't affect it considerably. They affect it somewhat. Like towards the end of the game, you can see what was happening with no Commissar. So Commissars being nerfed is kind of a big deal. But
yeah, pretty big deal.
If you know that it's there, you can plan around it. So I'll see what I can come up with.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Ryan?
Well, the way I'm going to change my list is I'm going to use the correct amount of points.
It's a good start. Strong choice.
Take a few brimstones out. Pretty much it.
So yeah, he's not changing his list, and I'm pretty sure by this point in the video I've posted the list already, so if you want to net list him and try to do what he does, there it is. Have fun with that. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about these tournament reports, and if there's any type of information that I might not have mentioned that you'd be interested in. Also, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.